want to take you through the story of how NATO became and is now today a revitalized, strong military alliance that brings together not only 28 countries, but now 60 countries around the world who are partners, 28 allies, and close to 40 other countries that in one way or another are related to NATO, want to be part of the experiment that NATO has, want to be part of the hub of security building that NATO is providing. Today's NATO is not my father's, or indeed some of your grandfather's alliance. It's a very different alliance than the one that we read about in the history books that I studied when I was in university. We today have what I would call NATO 3.0. We're in the third version, a new version of NATO. If you go back, NATO 1.0, the alliance that was founded in 1949 when 12 nations came together in Washington to sign the treaty on April 4th, 1949, that alliance came together for a singular purpose: to provide confidence to the countries of Western Europe, devastated from an extraordinary period of 25 years of war, starting in 1914 and ending 30 years of war and ending in 1945, to give those countries strength and confidence to stand up against a threat that was coming from the East, represented by the Soviet Union and communism. And NATO's foundation, NATO's purpose, was to make sure that those countries could rebuild themselves, could become revitalized, could stand up again, and become the full and productive and democratic members of the international community that the people of those countries wanted it to be. And NATO provided the foundation for the re-emergence of Europe. It provided the foundation for the European Union, or as it was originally called, the European Economic Community. It was the foundation for the rebuilding of the prosperity in Germany, in France, in Britain, in Italy, and throughout Western Europe. But it also was a bulwark against the advance of Soviet communism, and indeed a deterrent to the expansion of that communism into the rest of Europe. That was the original purpose of NATO. That's what NATO 1.0 was all about. And then in 1989, the wall that had literally divided Europe, came down. And a new NATO was born. Indeed, at that time, many were questioning whether NATO still had a purpose, whether there was a reason for having NATO. One of Chicago's great sons, John Mearsheimer, professor at the University of Chicago, wrote a famous article why NATO would, in fact, be coming apart, because the raison d'etre had disappeared. Turns out, NATO 2.0 was born. This was a NATO that was fundamentally concerned about stabilizing and transforming Central and Eastern Europe. It would do for Eastern Europe what the United States and NATO in the first 40 years of the existence of the alliance had done for Western Europe. Provide a basis for countries to transform themselves, to throw off the yoke of dictatorship, to become prosperous and real members of the Western and indeed of the European continent. And the NATO in 1989 had 16 members. The NATO of today has 28 members. 12 new members who came from the area in Central and Eastern Europe that had either been dominated by and run by the Soviet Union or had lived in the shadow of the Soviet Union. Of those 12 new countries, all but one, Albania, is also become a member of the European Union. And it was this approach by the European Union and NATO together that created and allowed the stabilization of this part of the world, the emergence of this part of the world as part of a new Europe that was united, democratic, and at peace. And today it can be said that in European history, Europe is more united, more peaceful, and more democratic than it has ever been in history. That is an accomplishment that NATO, the European Union, and the countries that make up these organizations can be proud of.